first, did you get a chance to see the debate? If
No,
you did, what are your thoughts?
clips.
And if you haven't, what are some of the clips you've seen, and what is your overall reaction of the clips you've seen so far?
I thought the when I think it was Ramaswamy that went after Chris Christie about being an MSNBC guy, and then Chris
Yeah, love
Christie
that one.
immediately ran to MSNBC this morning. I thought that was hilarious. Um, Mike Pence actually showed a little bit of a personality, which was interesting. I wasn't expecting that, and I
Yeah,
think that the reason why I didn't watch it is because, as Whitney Webb said, it's all bullshit. Like it's all a show. It's none of it makes any amount of substantive difference. It's just a bunch of puppets on strings up there pretending and playing. It's a soap opera with psychopaths. So I don't really waste my time on that stuff. I mean, I will usually catch clips. I have to cover it obviously for my show. I have to talk about that kind of stuff. But it's an exercise in futility to waste your time on that sort of a thing. I mean, I understand why people do it, especially if you're in the independent media space. Obviously, it's something you probably have to talk about, but it's just a bunch of puppets on strings, and none of it makes any bit of difference whatsoever.
yeah. This will absolutely drive you insane if you were
Yes.
doing this like as recreation, or you were doing this as like part of your day as your news gathering sort of process. But when you're one of us, and Rome says this all the time, we are forced to watch this garbage
Yeah.
because we have to, because if we want to cover it. And I mean, it is doing, I don't know if it's called, we should call it God's work, but having to sit through some of this content in order to break it down for people to break down the propaganda, it is pretty. Sometimes I need the Pepto is basically what I'm saying,
Yeah, it's draining.
Misty. But
It is
but
draining.
let's get to this first clip, and this is actually the clip you just referred to. I think this is one of his popular clips
Yeah.
where he's talking about. Well, let me just play it, and then we'll comment on the other side. It's about a minute long.
You raise your hand supporting. No, I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And Chris Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
That clip right there, or maybe, I'm not sure if it was that moment, but that's definitely, to me, maybe top 3 moments
Yeah.
of the night, because we did, unfortunately, and if you watched, and anybody in the audience who watched our footage last night, it was grueling. We were dying. Yeah, it was grueling to have to sit through that, because it was completely unserious, not really a serious conversation about
Yeah.
any of the topics. But this
Yes.
assessment that Vivek says here, Misty,
He's
is
right.
the exact assessment that Nick and I have said many times, that he is just here as a sort of media plant to be able to go on shows like Morning Joe the following day to talk about it. But what are your thoughts? You were going to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I am not a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy. I think somebody in the chat called him an establishment plant. I think that's almost certain.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is likely a psyop. I think it is very likely that he has been kind of put into place as kind of a failsafe, maybe, as if, because Trump's got all this stuff going on. So I think he's interesting. I think he talks about some interesting stuff. Obviously, he supports Julian Assange publicly. I think that's fantastic. I will use that to my advantage all day long. But he is 100% correct in this clip. And I said this, we talked about this numerous times. I think I talked about it with Brad Pierce when I was on my show, or when we were on my show. And I said that it was almost certainly going to be 2 hours of Trump bashing, and everybody was just going to be bashing Trump and talking about Trump, and Trump wasn't going to be there, but it was going to be all about Trump. And I think that's Ramaswamy is very correct in saying that. But I do think he's also very smart, because people like DeSantis and Chris Christie have been trashing Trump, and I don't understand what their play is there, because if you alienate MAGA, if you alienate Trump supporters, how the hell
Doesn't
do
make
you
any
expect
sense.
to win? You know what I'm saying? And so the idea that they've been going so full force and so publicly trashing it, you don't have to do that. You don't have to praise him. You don't have to support him. You don't have to. You first of all, you could just not talk about him. The guy's already soaking up so much of the energy. You could just not talk about him. But then when you do talk about him, don't publicly trash him in the way that a lot, especially DeSantis, has been doing, because all you're going to do is alienate his base, and there's no way in hell you're going to win if you do that. So it's like, I don't know if it's a political miscalculation or if that's just the role that they're there to play. There's arguments being made for both, but I think that Ramaswamy is absolutely dead on right there, and Chris Christie is a turd. No question.
Yeah, and to your point about them criticizing Trump, this is the reason why, to me, Chris Christie is unserious.
Yeah.
Because if your goal is to win, you would not piss off the audience you need to get votes. So that's the reason why he's not a serious person. I feel like Pence is not serious either. At least the politics that he wants to project makes him an unserious candidate, sort of by default of that, of that. But let's play another clip here. We're going to play a bunch of clips of Vivek first to kind of get the juices going here. And this one is...
He was probably the most interesting. Again, I didn't watch the whole thing. I've just been seeing some clips, but I think, in my opinion, he was certainly the most interesting of the bunch.
And I don't know if I said it last night. No, I did say it last night during the live coverage. I think he won the debate in that sense. Nobody's winning the debate. When we're saying winning, it's not winning on substance. It's not like he convinced anybody for his ideas. We're just saying winning as he had the most memorable lines where the audience clapped on subject matters that maybe we agree with. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a better way of saying it. But let's watch this next clip and comment on the other side.
No, I didn't raise a hand. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax.
I'm going to rewind it only because Twitter was glitching right at the most important parts. I wanted them to hear it, but let's rewind it. And it's only 20 seconds. Let's watch again.
No, I didn't raise a hand. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence.
Why would he? I mean, he had to have known he would get that reaction about climate change. So it would seem unnecessary to me that you're having a good night and then you go, hold on, wait a minute. Let me say something really stupid that kind of wipes away some of the perceived good things that I have said. And another part I want you to kind of address and is what he actually says when he says, I'm the only one that's not bought and paid for. And then you see them kind of like half-heartedly kind of get offended, and because they kind of know they are bought and paid for, but nobody is really like really offended by that. But what do you think about the substance of what he said, and then why do you think he chose a moment to kind of say that climate change is a hoax? And I guess there's a lane on the conservative side that I don't believe the science, but they think that this is a active hoax. If you want to speak to that, Misty.
Well, maybe we could play it again, because I don't think he said climate change is a hoax. I think he said the agenda behind climate change is a hoax. And in that
would make sense.
Yeah, and he's right. Climate change is real. Climate change is a very real thing that we need to contend with, but this issue has absolutely been co-opted, and it is now being weaponized against us. And so the idea that he's speaking about that, I think, is incredibly important, because that is reality. I mean, in my opinion, come for me if you want, that's fine. But I think that there is definitely some stuff going on behind the scenes to weaponize this issue, this very real and important issue. And this is what they do, right? I mean, very often they take these issues that are legitimate, that are serious, that we need to contend with, that we need to have conversations about, and they weaponize them against us. And so I think that there's a lot of that happening. A lot of money is being made on the climate change agenda. A lot of money. So he's not, if that's what he said. And I mean, if maybe we could play.
We're going to replay it. Yeah. We're going to replay it just to listen clearly, because that distinction, and this is why it's always good for me to have a guest. I got to start making sure I have guests, because I miss things like this all the time. And people say this in the comments. He didn't say it that way. So I give a whole complete critique based on something I didn't even really pay attention to. But that absolutely is true, and you see it when you hear CNN and MSNBC talking about, or on Morning Joe is where I saw it, talking about, yes, U.S. needs to talk with China and be in communication for stuff like climate change. Do I really believe Morning Joe believes about climate change? Do I really believe that? Absolutely not. Do I really believe people telling me that these two countries need to talk because of climate change? Do I believe that's really happening? I mean, happening in any sort of substantial way? Absolutely not. So there's a lot of different ways it's being co-opted. Another thing I hear about climate change that is just what made to me clearly this is weird. This is not on the up and up, and that's the Great Reset theory.
Yes.
When they're labeling people like Klaus Schwab's like somebody a climate like somebody who's for climate change. I'm
Bill
like,
Gates
this
is involved.
Yeah, I'm like, this
Bill
is
Gates,
completely
they're crushing
nuts.
small farmers.
But go ahead.
They're crushing small farmers right now with the climate change agenda. They're trying to destroy small farmers so that they can take over the farming operations, and they want you to eat bugs, right? And so that's not a conspiracy theory. I'm tired of people pretending as if that's something that we all just made up out of thin air. They talk about it openly. They write books about it. They do whole speeches about it. That is definitely an agenda that they are seeking to follow. So yeah, I mean, I think that right now the big one is the idea that they're using this to crush small farmers, which I am absolutely 100% opposed to. And so if that's what he said, I may have gotten it wrong. He may have said climate change is a hoax. I don't think he did though. I think he said the agenda. So I think that is a very important distinction for sure.
Okay, that is a very important distinction. And let's listen. Either way, whether he did say it or not, it gave us the opportunity to point out the fact that there is real climate change, and then there's people who are co-opting it just like everything else that they co-opt. So let's listen.
No, I didn't raise a hand. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality...
Now, is the audience like upset that he's saying climate change?
He's not bought. No, because he said he's not bought. Yeah, he said he's the only one that's not bought, and I think that they have an issue with that. I think likely he's very bought too. So I don't. The audience may not be reacting because they think he's bought. I don't know if the Fox News audience would know that, but I think that they're probably trying to contend that Trump is not bought, which is absurd. But I think that that's probably likely what they're doing.
Because I'm trying to look at who would be offended here. I mean, Nikki Haley obviously cannot be offended by that. She obviously, of anybody on this, she is bought and paid for. Of course, Mike Pence is bought and
Chris
paid.
Christie is bought.
Chris Christie is bought and paid for. I'm just trying to see. I don't know much about Asa Hutchinson.
Me neither.
Or this other guy. So I can't comment on them. And then you already know Tim Scott is bought. He's a center. He's bought.
Yeah.
So I don't see why they would be offended by that. I'll let it finish out.
Yeah, I think it's the Trump thing.
That has to be what it is. So I misinterpreted the boos. They're not booing what he's saying about the climate agenda.
I think they likely agree with that.
Yeah.
I would say that audience probably agrees with him on that.
Yes. And he did say, we did confirm, he said climate change agenda. Not climate change.
Very different.
So that's a key thing I picked up on.
The climate change agenda is a hoax, and we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. No, I didn't raise
it. Okay, so let's move to the next one. That was a 20-second clip. We're spending a little more time than I wanted to, because they're actually, just like you said, you saw a bunch of clips. There's a ton of clips of this guy, and that's, to me, is what also kind of confirms
that he won.
That he kind of won the night. Yeah, because he's the one that's kind of, I think he's trending now, actually. Somebody tweeted that he's trending.
He is very charismatic. He is very he's got kind of that Obama appeal where he's very well spoken, he's very articulate, he's very passionate. I think that he's got that that going for him. I mean, obviously it's bullshit, but
different policy. Oh, Nick is here. I'm glad he showed up. I was gonna ask you usually take Thursdays off. I'm like, I don't want to bother him if he's with his family, but I'm glad you're here, sir. So join whenever you're ready.
Let's drop in.
Yeah,
Misty in the house too.
And this next clip is let me just let it play, and then we'll, because this will get us a lot of reaction from us.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
I was born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are two genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is what won us the American Revolution.
He's a bootlicker.
Will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce myself tonight.
That was hard to let it play all the way, but I wanted to let it play all the way. But what's up, Nick? I know you've been watching. What made you join? It was something, because usually when you join midstream, something triggered you. What triggered you, sir?
There's a lot to discuss. My friend Misty here. We're probably Misty.
Hey.
This incredible conversation, because I was out earlier. I was doing another run, and I think we gave away around $400, $500 of school supplies.
Nice.
Wow. So I'm gonna show you guys what I just got back from. This is why I joined a little bit late. I didn't want to confirm for sure, but because I knew I had some runs to make today, so I was like, if I do join, I may join a little bit late. So I helped her and her family get a ton of school supplies. Like that's the car. I just load her with a ton because she has like 3 grandkids. She has a bunch of other younger people in her family, and her daughter. We're gonna meet up. I'm gonna try and help her get her daughter some clothes as well. Thinking the best way I can do it is probably just get her like a gift card, because she said she slept at Walmart. So I'm like, I don't believe in litmus. I don't believe in means testing shit. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like, hey, well, I'll give you the cash. I'm sure you didn't get it for yourself. You know what I mean? So, I went around and I found her and her family. So it feels good to do this because I got like 3 people who already volunteered to help us in our next event. I have someone I'm gonna do another run this maybe tomorrow on Saturday, and then we'll pass out some more supplies. I think I'll have a barbecue we throwing this Saturday. We're gonna have
that's gonna be dope
as well. So yeah, man, this is that's why I was earlier today. Just trying to get activated in the community, and people already get activated. Already people I know that reached out to help once they see this stuff. So much love and appreciation to this brilliant woman here. So anyway, that was
grandma.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. But that inspired. But what these things do, Nick, is inspire. Like it feels like people's radicalness has just been hibernating, and all it takes is somebody to wake it out and be like, "Oh, wait, let me wake that up in me. I've been wanting to do this," because that's the reaction we get all the time. I've been looking to do this for so long. Is a reaction.
Yeah, that's exactly what her daughter told me when she volunteered, and she's gonna help me with a few runs later. And a few people asked me why I'm doing this because they like shocked. They're like, "What's the catch? What's the gimmick here?" And I explained on my radical ass politics. I said, our people are struggling, fam. We need radical love. This is what I was telling her, and this is what she got fired up. Like I saw like the passion in her eyes immediately. That's why I love doing this shit, man. I love actually talking to real people, not online avatars. People afraid to use their real picture, for example. I'm talking to real people in the streets. So I was telling her, I'm like, this government's failed us, fam. Like no one's saving us. Like, and as soon as I said it, it was no resisting, no PMC resistance. As soon as I said it, she's like, hell yeah, you're right. Like it was immediate. She understood what I was talking about. Like, so if the government not working, we need to change our culture. We need to love each other, and we need to come together. So I'm starting that now. And then she's like, yo, how can I help? Got 3 volunteers just from doing that. Because as I explained to you guys before, mutual aid without the community building, without the education, is just charity. Because mutual aid is about building on a relevant goal, building community for a relevant goal. Just charity where nothing is learned or gained or built upon, that is not going to benefit the movement. The whole point is to change the culture, and that is what I'm having a great time doing. I think I'm gonna have like 2 volunteers. One of my cousins is gonna join me, and we're just gonna go around neighborhoods just knocking on doors, and we're gonna do a checklist. It's like, hey, what do you need? What do you need, fam?
I love that.
Hey, what do you need that the government not helping you with, right? And I'm gonna preach that message to these people because I got like 100% flip rate on that shit. 100%. Yeah. Every time I say that shit, people are like, hell yeah, you're right, brother. I made good friends. I made like 6, 7 good friends. Like their whole family loves me now just because I'm telling them this shit. And they're like, why is no one else telling us this? And I immediately get made friends just like that. That's how you build community. Do mutual aid. Now these people who was deactivated. Remember what we say, CJ? We're not looking for Trump supporters. We're not looking for partisans, right? These people was deactivated, and now they're organizing with us with mutual aid. You guys see the people we going after? You guys see the strategy and the vision that I'm proud to see play out?
Shit, even if they are Trump supporters, if you go and you talk to them and you educate them and you build community with them, it's very quick. I've done that in my own community. I live in small town Ohio. I'm surrounded by Trump supporters, and I have those conversations all the time. And it's not hard. Trump supporters actually agree with us on a lot of things. And it's not that hard to have those conversations with them. I mean, it's probably a little bit easier for me because I'm white, so it's a little bit easier. But yeah, I mean, it's not that hard to flip these people, and once they recognize that you agree with them on some shit, it's very easy to get that inroad. It's not that hard.
So get back up. Go ahead, CJ. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say because you said it's probably easy because you're white, and this is what white allies
should be doing.
This is because you say all the time, like, we can't do it. We aren't the right messengers for a lot of these messages, so we can't do it.
And people need to stop getting mad at me for being willing to have those conversations with people that I don't agree with. Because people trash me for doing that, and I'm like, go fuck yourself. That's that should be my job. That's a role that I can play. That's something I can do. I have the ability to walk into those spaces and have those conversations, and if I can do that, I should be doing that. And people get so mad. I can't believe you're willing to talk to racists. I can't believe. And listen, are some Trump supporters casually racist? Absolutely. Will I call that out every single time it comes up? Every single time? Yes, absolutely. But I can still attempt to enter, and it doesn't always go great. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it goes poorly. But I mean, that's the very least I could do is to attempt to enter into those conversations and change some minds.
Yeah.
So stop getting mad. Stop hating on me for doing it.
I know the people who will get mad at you are the dumb PMC left that we call out all the time. Like these are the DSA types.
They want to hang out in their little bubble. Yeah.
Yes. And they legitimately do not believe in organizing on class lines. No. They don't believe in any legitimate socialist and communist rhetoric. And I take it upon myself to call these people out because no one makes socialists and communists look worse than they do. You guys think right-wing propaganda is hurting our movement? Not at all. People see the DSA clowns and they see these people who are anti-organizing on class lines, and there are white DSA members that say shit like that. I cut out my racist family members. I don't talk to racist white people. You're not benefiting our community at all.
They think that's cool. They think that makes them look cool. Oh, look, you're an ally. You stop talking to your racist family. That's not what you're supposed to do is have conversations, really tough conversations with those racist family members and change their fucking minds. How do you expect to change their minds if you're not even willing to engage in conversation? It's so frustrating to me. And I'm like, I don't care that I get hate for it. I'm going to keep doing it. But it's just so self-defeating when people get mad over that.
Yeah,
it's so dumb.
I have an interesting clip I want to play.
Go ahead. I
read this because you pull it up here. Because I see you pull my tweet up. And this is where, this is actually perfect, CJ, whether you know or not. It's actually a good preface to what I'm about to pull up because Chris Christie, the NATO right, you know how the NATO left led by Bernie Sanders. The NATO right is in shambles. Y'all knew this segment was coming, right? I told you guys this is the segment. The NATO right is in shambles because the NATO right thought that was delusional in believing that Nikki Haley and Chris Christie and Mike Pence somehow had an intellectually superior position than Vivek Ramaswamy, who we explained before, who is deeply unimpressive to me. But he won the debate, not saying much. That's because everyone else is clowns, right? So Vivek is one of the few people who have common sense and knowledge to speak out against the Ukraine war when polls show that the majority of Republicans are against that. And even one of the polls seen, and once again, we gotta be careful with polls. So that's why I say just one. One of the polls I it showed around 1 out of 3 Democrats are against the Ukraine war funding, which is like, dude, that's a lot. You know what I mean? It's not great, but that's a lot. Combine that with the independents and the Republicans who don't support it, it's a politically canceled position as you would expect it is, right? You have people like AOC who support the NATO Ukraine agenda, and then they wonder why her approval ratings as low as Kamala Harris, as low as Hillary Clinton. And I told you guys, fam, if AOC did cringe ass shit about like doing videos about sunscreen, but she was an anti-imperialist though, like she organizing real shit and she fighting for the war. Like people wouldn't give a fuck, to be honest. I wouldn't care.
No.
Like she did some silly shit every once in a while.
Talk about your sunscreen, girl, but let's go in the war. You know what I mean?
So that's my theory, because I think I don't think that would lead her unpopularity. Because she don't fight. That's what it is. Meanwhile, I preface it too long. Let's get to the comment here. The Ukraine war is going to be a giant thing. Mm-hmm. We haven't even the campaign haven't started yet, fam. Like the Republican primary is still organizing themselves, and we see which way this is going. The Vivek wing, the Trump wing, where I think Trump's solution, and I'm gonna say this right now, the right solution on this issue is absolutely incoherent. Because Vivek Ramaswamy said, we're gonna have peace in Ukraine. I'm gonna force Putin to leave and force him to end his military line. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, nigga? You might as well write fan fiction. What else? You gonna solve world hunger? Use a free market capitalist model. What else? What else is in your fucking fantasy land? But anyway, let me get to it. You can play the clip if you want to, because it actually fits really well with my segment, believe it or not. So let's play the clip, and then I kind of explain my tweet here, so I don't have to read it. I just explain what my mindset was when I made it. But that's what I'm saying. Like the NATO right is going to get dismantled. And imagine when the general election is between the right wing, like Vivek and the Trump team speaking out against the Ukraine war, versus Joe Biden and surrogate Bernie Sanders advocating for war. I cannot wait, CJ. I cannot wait until Marjorie Taylor Greene quotes tweets Bernie Sanders and crushes him on the Ukraine war. You know it's coming. You know it's coming. Anyway, let's play the clip. And I have a clip showing you guys the meltdown from CNN and MSNBC after this. So let's continue.
All right, let's play it.
Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine.
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protected against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving into China's hands.
It's so close.
So
I was just about to say, these anti-war populists, they always be right at the cusp. It's like, just stop right there. Don't say nothing else after that. And then they go with the sentence that kind of wipes away. And it's usually, no, we shouldn't be doing no Ukraine. Stop the Ukraine war so we can go over here and have war with China. That's usually the dynamic.
He's that
wait
guy.
for them to say,
He's that guy. He's a big China guy.
And I explained this before. They're not anti-imperialist guys.
No.
They criticize the moves of the empire because they don't believe it's the right move for the empire to make.
Yeah.
So the right, they argue that Ukraine is not in our best interest. The same way you have some anti-war right people that say the war on terror is not in our best interest. But then they would turn around and say, hey, in our best interest, we got to wage war to expand our empire against China. You have Ron DeSantis that say, hey, why aren't we doing more to crush? This is literally what he said after the Colombia elections. He said, why aren't we doing more to crush socialists in South America like we used to?
Yeah.
So it's not there.
Vivek wants to drone strike Mexico. He wants to drone strike Mexico to deal with the cartels. He wants to go to war with Mexico. He's fucking nuts. He's not an anti-imperialist. He's fucking nuts. That's what he is.
But anyway, let's continue this clip, because this split between the capitalists who disagree on Ukraine, I can't wait to see when it hits a real fever pitch, guys. We're still in the preseason of conversation of this. So wait till the Bernie Sanders progressive left had to forced out of their hole. They've been trying their best to avoid this shit, but they're not going to be able to avoid this much when they hit the campaign trail, when they got to do interviews. Imagine if Donald Trump said something crazy about Ukraine, and they're like, "Hey, Bernie Sanders, what do you think about the Trump comment on Ukraine?" Wait till that clip comes out. Wait till that.
He gonna have this response. I don't know. I don't really mess with that kind of stuff too much, like he did before.
Yeah,
Let's
let
Such a
him
coward.
all the way through, then we've come afterwards.
So I'm gonna have to refresh like the common thing that
It's all good.
Twitter does. Yeah.
So
I'll refresh.
Yeah. So after we play this clip, I have a clip of some follow-up interviews, and you guys already covered the Chris Christie thing, and I made
You mean like
predictions
he's in a
literally.
spin room? Like you talking about when he was a follow-up interview in a spin room?
Dana
or
Bash,
else?
when Dana Bash had a meltdown regarding his Ukraine segments. We'll play that afterwards, but let's watch this clip all the way through first.
Here we go.
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first, secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
Now, his comment about the MSNBC and Chris Christie, that's probably his most popular comment. To me, this was his most policy effective comment. Was this comment? I remember last night thinking when he made this comment, because the Pope, your Pope Zelensky,
I love that.
That was spot on. But go ahead. It sounds like you wanted to chime in. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I enjoyed that moment, and I enjoyed the Chris Christie moment the same way I enjoyed the Trump Republican debates, because I don't find Vivek very interesting. I don't find him brilliant at all. But imagine how horrible your positions are to be destroyed by an amateur politician like Vivek, in the same way Donald Trump destroyed the 2016 field, in the same way we just saw Vivek destroy that field. We've seen a long-time establishment politicians get dismantled easily. How can you not enjoy that? And you're going to watch CNN get dismantled here. The Chris Christie clip from MSNBC is very fascinating, especially the foreign policy part. But listen to this, because this is CNN, and this is how they titled the video. Dana Bash presses Vivek on his Ukraine comments from the debate. So let's watch this. Yeah. We can comment on it.
Here with me. Thank you so much for being here.
It's good to see you, Dana.
Were you expecting the incoming that you got tonight?
You know, it was an honor. I took it as a badge of honor, as the 38-year-old outsider in this race, who's never
not an outsider.
No.
Stage and see a lot of establishment politicians that threatened by my rise. I am thrilled that it actually gave me an opportunity to introduce myself to the people of this country. We're just getting warmed up, and I'm really thrilled with how it went.
I want to play for our viewers a moment that you had with Nikki Haley about foreign policy.
Got it.
And by the way, just to sum it up, I watched a little bit more in Joe today, and they're pretending that Nikki Haley is a winner of this debate.
Yeah. Let's pause it here, because I was going to say this earlier too. Everybody, and if you didn't, I know you didn't because you were running some errands, but I played a clip of Breaking Points. Guess who Kyle agrees with? Nikki Haley won the night.
No way.
Yes.
Come on, man.
Kyle Kalinske on Breaking Points.
No way.
Yes, he said Nikki Haley run the night. So I'm saying that tells you, because I was going to say this, I was going to play that and then say, hey, Kyle Kalinske and the professional managerial class left, the NATO left, are literally having the same talking points and literally have the same understanding and belief in politics as Morning Joe. There's no difference. Morning Joe is saying that Nikki Haley won by far. CNN too. So, that is literally the establishment people. Nick and Misty. Those are the ones who are saying Nikki won. Go ahead.
Let's show that Kyle Kalinske, and we already know this because he's just embarrassing. He's just full-fledged establishment now. Nikki Haley, we didn't even think of her when we was talking about winners and losers. She sounded like a shit lib the entire debate. Nothing but identity politics bullshit. And I was calling out, watch the live coverage. Every time she speak out, man, this identity politics bullshit. The same thing that the right claim they rail against. And then she also had foreign policy that is deeply unpopular.
Yeah.
Deeply unpopular. So in what universe did she win? When you say that, you expose your shit liberty. And once again, Kyle Kalinske and the Breaking Points crowd, the Breaking Points left, sounding no different than Joe Scarborough, because that's literally the message that they're bringing. They are forced to admit, CJ. They're forced to admit that Asa didn't do anything. They're like, yeah, Asa was kind of forgettable. And I thought there was someone who made that comment. So they're forced to acknowledge that, but they saw these few neocon moments for Nikki, and they had to give it to her for propaganda purposes. But let me continue the clip. But it's embarrassing that people thought she won.
You are choosing a murder over a pro-American country.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. Dissent,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
Oh my! Dismantled right there. Literally in the first few seconds. And Nikki Haley and the establishment types are so entrenched in DC, they don't even understand how Vivek destroyed her in literally a few seconds. Because the average person that see that is like, yep, you're goddamn right. She is bought and owned by the military-industrial complex. Listen to this part again. I'll play some more of it. Fucking dismantles her immediately.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. Dissent,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
But
the fact of the matter,
and
Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
They don't let him finish right here. I noticed that. They never come back to him either to let him finish
and that's
his
what they do when
critique of
they're
Ukraine. Yeah.
That's what they do
never
when
come back to
And
let
they're
him finish his
starting-
critique on Ukraine.
They've been
Go ahead.
fighting about Israel for the past week and a half because Ramaswamy dared to step he's not even anti-Israel. He is very pro-Israel. He just stepped slightly outside of the approved narrative, and she had a temper tantrum, had a full-on meltdown, and now she's trying to claim that he wants to defund Israel. Fuck Israel. How about that? You know what I'm saying? I'm so tired of this whole conversation about Israel and how, we're sending them billions of dollars a year. Everybody's freaking out about Ukraine, as they should be. But how about we talk about the fact that we're sending billions of dollars to Israel every single year? And it is ridiculous.
Is this not part of Kyle's analysis at all?
No.
The fact that she's
No.
going to bat for Israel?
No.
Once again, deeply unserious rhetoric, and they are the dumb left. Yes, I am taking their term. That the funny thing, they are the one who coined it. The Sam Cedar Kyle Kalinske left, but we thoroughly exposed them as completely anti-intellectual, completely void of any political analysis based on theory.
It's very
personal lived working class experience.
Yeah.
It's just fucking garbage.
It's surface level.
I can't even imagine how fucking bad that analysis is to think that she won. Go back a few seconds and we begin.
Pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
You want to go and defund Israel? You want to
let me address that. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to address each of those right now.
They say nothing. It's not even her turn. They don't even say anything.
He was given 30 seconds and she jumped in within 10.
Yeah, they always break the rules for the people they like.
Yeah.
I even know that during the Bernie campaign, they did it all the time.
Yeah.
They have preferred people that will allow them to break the rules. And you notice how Nikki Haley interrupts them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that between that exchange between Pete Buttigieg and Bernie, I'll never forget, where Pete wouldn't allow Bernie to speak because he knew Bernie was about to get that ass. It's an establishment technique.
Yeah.
And even though, once again, we all know I don't view Ramaswamy as particularly impressive, but can you imagine Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley in a sit-down, long-form 60-minute conversation? Right. Vivek will ruin her entire career just based on these short exchanges, because
it wouldn't take much. It doesn't take much. It does not take much to destroy any one of these establishment people because they are garbage. They're garbage human beings.
She's relying on sound bites, media plants in the crowd. But if that's why Vivek, let me take these one by one and analyze this, because if they did and they analyzed each one of these issues, Nikki Haley would be exposed as the unhinged neocon that she is. And let's continue, because then after this clip, CNN, Dana Bash, Anderson Cooper, they're gonna go after Vivek for this. They're not happy with this clip.
Yeah.
So let's watch.
The experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The foreign policy experience.
You don't have foreign policy experience, and it shows.
Well, the reality is the people who have foreign policy experience, it shows what a disaster it's been from the Iraq war on down to other pointless wars, wars that these administrations from foreign policy establishments in both parties.
So if you were
Can you pause it? Can you pause it? Okay, go ahead.
I'll pass it to you, CJ. I'll pass it to you, CJ. But if you were in the establishment and you're talking about foreign policy, the last thing you should ever bring up is your foreign policy experience.
Yeah.
That immediately disqualifies you.
Yeah.
If anything, you should never bring that up. Like,
No.
Make sure people don't know that you was part of these decisions. Never bring up the fact that you have foreign policy experience, because every decision the United States has made has been a failure, been an inhumane failure. But CJ, I know you want to chime in, so go ahead.
You can see Dana Bash face. She is terrified that this guy might say something too much. She is literally terrified that this guy might say something out of line, because she knows she has to react on the fly. So she's just kind of like, please don't say nothing too crazy that I have to get out here and do basically fisticuffs with you figuratively out here. Like, because I don't want to take it there. I'm a professional managerial class. I want to stay civil with you. But she knows that weapons manufacturers are listening to what you're doing. Why didn't you push back on him when he said this? Go ahead, Misty.
No, the weapons manufacturers are also funding this segment.
Yes.
They're funding CNN. So she's got to be very careful here. For sure.
Yeah,
Can't piss off the donors.
Moment.
Yeah.
This is her big moment. Sink or swim, Dana. You better not fucking fellas here.
People who have foreign policy experience, it shows what a disaster it's been from the Iraq war on down to other pointless wars, no-win wars that these administrations from foreign policy establishments in both parties having led us into. I think the results speak for themselves. They've been disastrous. And so I do think that I am the only person bringing clear strategic vision to our foreign policy rather than just going through the talking points.
You want to know why I don't believe him? Just real quick. Because he's a Trump bootlicker.
Yeah.
On the debate stage, he said Donald Trump is the best president he ever seen, or at least in his lifetime, something like that.
The 20th century, I think he said.
In the 20th century.
20th century.
In the 20th century. But the person that he's having a debate with, who's the establishment neocon, Nikki Haley, was hired by who?
Donald Trump.
Why is there no criticism of that by people?
Right? He's the best. He said, I'm going to drain the swamp. And then he literally dug under the swamp and found the worst of the worst swamp monsters and hired all of them. So how anybody's pretending like Donald Trump is some, amazing president, some genius. It's just bullshit. I'm so tired of the Trump supporters, and they're absolutely delusional.
Yeah, I had enough.
Oh God, it's exhausting. And listen, I'm an Assange supporter. I'm so tired. They don't even know. They don't even know that it was Donald Trump that had Julian Assange arrested. And then they tell them that, and they freak the fuck out. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, it was under Donald Trump that he was arrested. It was under Donald Trump that Julian Assange was spied on. It was under Donald Trump that they plotted to murder him. They don't even know this shit. They don't know. They've just completely blocked it out. They are they're cult. I mean, I hate to say cultists because they get very offended, but it is true. If you are blindly following this guy, you are a cultist, period.
I mean, he appointed Bolton and Pompeo. I'm done. Bolton and Pompeo. I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It was Donald Trump that stole $1.3 billion of Venezuelan gold.
Yes. We're gonna go steal their oil for Syria. We're gonna go steal their oil.
It was Donald Trump that was waging a genocide in Yemen.
Yeah. Well, that's been going on for a long time. We can't blame that on him. He continued it. But that's been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. We understand that. He continued that.
Yeah.
You want to know who had no criticism and other stuff? Had President right in front of his face and didn't mention it? Tucker Carlson.
Oh my God.
You got the guy who claims he cares about Julian Assange has a fucking president who tried to kill Julian Assange, doesn't ask about him.
No. Gotta keep that access. Gotta keep that access, Nick. You gotta keep it. What a coward.
What a
fucking coward.
Fucking coward. Boy, there are a lot of Tucker fans that are gonna be upset with me when we do that segment. I made it 20 minutes in. I made it 20 minutes in the Trump Tucker conversation. Misty, I don't give a fuck. It's gonna be hilarious. Couldn't finish it. 20 minutes of straight up garbage.
Yes.
And we said the debate was garbage, right?
Yes.
The debate had more policy discussion than the fucking Trump Tucker conversation. How the fuck is that possible?
No,
the whole conversation was like, Tucker was like, "Hey Trump, why do you think the media hates you? Why do you think they act against you? You fucking bootlicking pussy."
Zero
That's the
hard
question you asking
questions.
them?
No hard questions were asked. Not one single hard question was asked
No
of Donald
follow-up
Trump.
question.
You got him
Like that
sitting right in front of you, and you don't ask a single fucking thing of substance. Really?
Tucker Carlson pulled his best Vanguard impersonation.
Right?
Tucker Carlson.
Why do you leave mainstream media? You're just mainstream media, dude. Weak sauce. Coward.
The Tucker Carlson Trump interview was literally like the Vanguard Marianne Williamson interview. It was exactly the fucking same. So we go after them for that. Why aren't people going after Tucker for that? It was garbage, fam.
It was garbage.
It was absolute garbage. But anyway, let's continue. We're going a little bit off topic. That's my bad. I'm gonna let it continue some work. I interrupted a few times, but feel free to interrupt if you guys have anything. I'm gonna go back a little bit. I want you guys to hear this change some more.
Wars that these administrations from foreign policy establishments in both parties having led us into. I think the results speak for themselves. They've been disastrous. And so I do think that I am the only person bringing clear strategic vision to our foreign policy rather than just going through the talking points memorized in 1990.
So that might be there have been
Nice.
mistakes made in
Sounds
both administrations on the world stage. But let's just say you're in the Oval Office and you are, as the President of the United States, part of NATO.
Yes.
And you see what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, just for example. And Russia moves on to a NATO ally.
We will always honor our treaty commitments, but
That's
under
never
my
gonna
watch, Russia will
happen.
not move on
What? What
That's
is
never gonna happen.
Since when do
What's
we
it
honor
talking
our
about?
treaties? Since when? Oh,
what an unhinged question, fam?
yeah.
You guys know this. We have France that is moving on Niger right now.
Mhm.
You have Israel that's been moving on Syria, been bombing Syria. They just bombed Syria's capital last
Weekly.
week.
Yeah.
But look at the hypothetical she brings up. What if Russia moves on another country? NATO and the NATO country are the biggest offensive threats to peace in humanity.
Yes.
What
Mind
a
blowing.
ridiculous question. Unbelievably mind blowing. But let's continue. I want to let more of it play. I want to hear the question. It is unbelievable.
The President of the United States, part of NATO.
Yes.
And you see what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, just for example. And Russia moves on to a NATO ally.
We will always honor our treaty commitments, but under my watch, Russia will not move on a NATO ally because
How can you be so sure?
Because I will do a deal that ends the Ukraine war on terms that are backstopped by U.S. interests. The deal I would do would be to freeze the current lines of control and make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO, but we get more in return by requiring Putin to exit his military alliance with Xi Jinping.
Really? You think Putin gives one single fuck what you're going to require of him? Go fuck yourself, dude. Putin is laughing his ass off at you right now. Amazing. I saw his tweet about this where he's like, we're going to require Putin to... Really? You're going to require... Putin's not going to do shit for you, dude. Are you joking? Putin does not give a single fuck what you think you're going to require of him. Not a single fuck is given. Not one. Not one. Nor should it be. He's such an idiot. So stupid.
Sweet summer child.
Right?
That's why I'm going to tell you guys, it is interesting to see the liberal and corporate media having to contest against the right-wing Ukraine narrative. But I explained to you guys before, I am not impressed by it, though. Because speaking out against the Ukraine war is the easy part, fam.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're not propagandized two parties supporting duopoly simp, everyone can sit through the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
What do you advocate for after that?
Ask them about China, and then it all falls apart. It all falls apart very quickly.
So I think I can hold those two thoughts at once, I believe. I think it's interesting seeing people like Vivek challenge the Ukraine narrative. While I'm explaining to you guys at the same time that they're unserious about the solution.
Yeah.
Those two thoughts can exist at once, I believe.
And we can use it to our advantage to encourage further support for the ending of the conflict in Ukraine and for exposing the ridiculousness of it and the absolute futility, and further the absolute reality that this is a NATO-invoked war. This is not a Putin. Putin didn't just wake up one day and suddenly be like, I'm going to invade Ukraine. That's not what happened. And that is the story that they've been trying to feed everybody. And it's still pervasive throughout mainstream media now. But that is starting to fall away. People are starting to recognize the fact that this is 100% NATO invoked. This is our war, 100%. No question about it. We have been poking that bear for years. You know what I mean? We've been trying to poke that bear and get this exact conflict started for a very long time. So yeah, it's but the idea that Putin cares at all, what Vivek Ramaswamy is going to require of him is absurd. So stupid.
What a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like the people that and his supporters hear that shit and they think it's smart. The dumbest shit some of the dumbest shit you will hear. Like that's morning joke quality analysis there. But that's why this clip was interesting. Because we 2 minutes in, you guys see how served 2 minutes of this motherfucker is from every side. Like if you support the two-party duopoly, whether the Dana Bash side or the Vivek side, you are a clown. Yeah. Or I'll be nice. I'm sorry. You're propagandized.
Yeah.
Please wake up. I'll be gentle. I'll be gentle. Because there are some people don't deserve the funk. Some people don't deserve the funk. I'll admit that. Because some people are victims of this shit. And we want to wake them up.
We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
We don't have time for that shit anymore. I tried being patient. I really did. I don't have time for it.
Let me reload this real quick. Yeah. I try to show grace to some people, but like when I see you been repeating this shit for a while, I was like, all right, fam, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. If the people who don't pay attention, I try to have grace for these people.
Yes.
But anyway, let's continue.
Would be to freeze the current lines of control and make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO, but we get more in return by requiring Putin to exit his military alliance with Xi Jinping. China is the top threat we face. That's what we actually need to remember. And everybody in that foreign policy establishment, you saw it from Mike Pence today, too. I had to remind him the USSR does not exist anymore.
But you would be president of the United States, not president of Ukraine. And
of course,
President Zelensky.
Ukraine is a client state of the United States because we're paying the bills of their government.
Oh, they don't like that.
He just said it out loud. I love it.
Can you rewind that section, please? Rewind that, please. Rewind that. This is like this is the equivalence. This is almost, I'm not gonna say quite. It's similar to them admitting the 2014 coup back in February of 2022 of this war. It's similar to that, but go ahead.
Misty, was you about to say something before I continue?
No, I just think we should play that on a loop because he just said it out fucking loud. Out fucking loud, and I love it. That's the kind of shit I can get behind. It's like I've always said that Trump sucks, but there were some bright spots. The idea that he would just say out loud, "We're going to go steal their oil," that rips the mask off. And I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, the idea that he has no gift for subtlety and he just speaks the truth about the ridiculous and horrendous shit that we're doing. That's something that we can utilize. And I think him saying Ukraine is a client state, fuck yeah, they are.
We have to point out he comes from the school of Trump. So to me, this is one of the traits he's picking up as a good trait from Trump. Like I think he's analyzed Trump. This is good, and he's trying to mimic Trump in some areas. This is one of them. Just unabashedly telling the truth about our imperialism, or at least our military industrial complex and strategy. Yes, when it benefits him. Absolutely.
How is it possible for someone to be so up and down in a span of just a few seconds?
Right?
Yeah, no.
I go from like rolling my eyes, absolutely cheering, to rolling my eyes, to cheer. It's like, come on, dude.
1 second, this guy says something absolutely batshit crazy, and then he just kills it right here.
Yeah.
And you guys remember the Jimmy Dore, Marianne Wilson interview?
Oh God.
The fiction that the NATO left and the NATO supporters live on, that Ukraine is a sovereign state, it's crucial for their argument. They keep saying stuff like, "Oh, what can we possibly do to stop the Ukrainians from fighting?" We directly control and pay for their government. We can tell them exactly everything what to do. So there's that fact that they rely on. And also
we could have not overthrown their government in 2014 and installed a puppet dictator. I mean, we could have just done that. We could have just stayed the fuck out of it and not overthrown their government. I mean, we do that all the time, but people don't want to talk about that. What can we possibly do? How about we stop overthrowing democratically elected leaders in governments where we wish to control them? How about we stop doing that? I mean, are we allowed to talk about that yet? No, we're not ready for that conversation.
Yeah,
so stupid.
I'll let it continue some more.
Mike Pence today, too. I had to remind him the USSR does not exist anymore.
But you would be president of the United States, not president of Ukraine. And
of course,
President Zelensky.
Ukraine is a client state of the United States because we're paying the bills of their government employees.
President Zelensky wouldn't necessarily agree to what you would say about the lines and the boundaries.
So I have two things to say.
You notice she skipped over that. Over that?
Yeah.
You telling me that's not a tail, Misty and Nick? That's a tail.
100%.
That is a tail if you skip over one of the if I'm talking to you and I go, hey, yeah, I'm watching TV. I threw a grenade over the balcony. I'm about to drink this water. You skipping over the grenade on the balcony part that I said?
Yeah.
Is that what you're gonna do? Like that's exactly what she's doing. He is.
Yeah, but President Zelensky, President Zelensky's not going to go. Fuck President Zelensky. We pay his bills.
Yeah, that's
He'll
the
do
part that
whatever
made
the
me
fuck
laugh.
we tell him to do. That's the point he's making. He will do whatever the fuck we tell him to do because he has to. He has no other choice.
I'm gonna play that part again because that's the part that made me laugh. I'm sorry, guys, but that
No,
part
I love it.
that part is so fucking funny because she said, "What if Zelensky disagrees with us?"
As if he has a choice.
She's such a fucking child.
Oh.
As if Zelensky got a fucking say.
That's about as
Listen
ridiculous
to this part
as
again.
thinking.
I didn't catch that the first time I saw this. Listen to this fucking child. I'm
Yeah.
worried about crying listening to this shit.
States because we're paying the bills of their government employees.
President Zelensky wouldn't necessarily agree to what you would say about the lines and the boundaries.
So I have two
of his
things to
country.
say.
Zelensky would not agree.
Oh.
Anyway, let's
I think
continue.
when the U.S. stops funding Ukraine, that settles exactly where that goes. But I also think this would be a better deal for Ukraine because it comes out with its sovereignty intact. The spring offensive that
No, it
became the
doesn't.
summer offensive that became the offensive that never was. This is not on track to end well for
Wow,
Ukraine.
he's calling
either.
out the
And so I think
offensive
this is
too.
good for Ukraine.
Oh, that's a failure.
It will be a certain concessions to Putin, but we win in return. And that's what I'm focused on. America winning.
You are the only candidate who says, and you've said for some time, that you would pardon Donald Trump.
Yes.
The
She
argument
got
that Mike
she was
Pence
like, I'm done
agreed
with
Mike
Ukraine.
Pence made
Yeah, bro,
he
she
might
had
bring up
nothing.
something else
Just
important.
moving on.
Yes,
What
I'm
the
done
fuck?
with Ukraine. He said client state. I cannot come back to this. Go
She's
ahead.
not even going to address what he just said. She's not going to
Not
talk
at
about any
all.
of that. And how? Please, somebody explain to me how Ukraine maintains its sovereignty. First of all, it doesn't have sovereignty now. Second of all, it sure as shit isn't going to get it back after all of this is said and done. It's still going to be a client state. How does it get out of being a client state of the United States and of NATO? How? Does somebody please explain to me how that happens? Because that's not going to happen. And the offensive that he's talking about is a monumental failure. It's a failure, though, on purpose. The United States is keeping Ukraine on life support because the goal here, and I'm going to talk about this later on my show with Kyle Anslone, the goal here is that we are going to offer up an entire generation of Ukrainian men at the altar of Western imperialism, hoping that for every 6 to 10 Ukrainians that die, 1 or 2 Russians will die. We're hoping to just weaken Russia enough, and we're using Ukrainian bodies as cannon fodder to make that happen. And so we're destroying an entire generation of Ukrainian men to maybe weaken Russia, and that has still been an abject failure. And we're not even, we're sending these guys out to war. They don't have the proper gear. They don't have the proper weaponry. We've been promising them all these fighter planes. They get 6 pilots. 6 pilots. They're training in English right now, and then they have to take a 6-month course on how to operate these planes. And these planes aren't even going to show up until late of 2024. And so we are setting them up to fail on purpose, hoping that we can just keep them on the line long enough that they might weaken Russia. And that is so despicable. But that's what's happening. That's the reality of what's going on in Ukraine right now. And we're okay. You're going to pardon Trump?
Yes. Yeah, so she lasted 90 seconds at best. You gotta realize she tried to debate Vivek on Ukraine and lasted 90 seconds.
Oh, dude, somebody in the comment called him Obama Swami. That's perfect. I love that so much.
Every single one of her arguments got easily swatted away, and she lost the debate in 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, how is that possible?
That's sad. That's sad.
Anyway, let's finish out, and then CJ, I'll pass to you. Sorry, I kind of hijacked this, but this is a funny segment. Let's continue.
Why are you saying that before he's even convicted and before he even shows remorse?
Well, the reality is we are in the middle of a presidential election, and we have seen indictments.
Remorse?
I read each of those indictments cover to cover before issuing my statement on each of them. And the reality is, and you know this, in law enforcement, in every case of a prosecutor, the most damning version of the facts and the law are in the indictment. So if there's something far different that's not in the indictments, that's nearly always true, and anyone in the legal practice will tell you it's a fair assumption to make. So, and I said at the time, assuming that these are the worst statement of the facts from the standpoint of the prosecution, yes, I would pardon Donald Trump on each of those facts, because I think it's a politicized persecution. And this is also part of what I mentioned to Christie on stage is There's a difference between making a bad judgment and committing a crime. And I think if we start conflating the two, that's a dangerous slippery slope in this country. I'll remind you, and this is coming from me now, polling at second in many of the national polls, it would be a lot easier for me if Donald Trump were not in this race. But that is not how I want to win. I want to win by convincing the people of this country that we can actually reunite our nation and lead us forward. And it will make my job as the next president that much more difficult if Donald Trump is behind bars or under indictment, especially under novel legal theories used for.
So
he's right.
I don't get the appeal. I don't get the appeal at all there, because that's his. I told you guys, there's two people running. There's two factions in this race. They're the people running for MSNBC. They're running also for a job at Raytheon and Boeing, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley. And then there's Trump, who's going to win, and then there's everyone else who trying to be part of Trump's cabinet or set them up for a future election or maybe future grift. He like, me and Trump, we want to unite people and build a police state. Let's build a police state together, fam.
No, but
celebrating over building a police state. So when you hear him say these platitudes, what are you talking about?
No, he's right though. He's making a very astute political calculation, because if he goes after Trump, he alienates all of MAGA, and so he is in that way. He is absolutely right, and I don't think he really wants to bring the country together. All that stuff is bullshit. But as we were talking about earlier, he is the only one, at least that I've seen, that is smart enough to understand that he cannot alienate MAGA. He's got to. It's a very difficult line to walk. You have to be able to criticize Trump effectively, but not go too far. And I think he's so far he's doing a pretty good job of that. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch as we get deeper into the election if he's able to maintain that balance, because that's going to be tough. But I think that that is a very astute political calculation that he's making right there. I think he's right. He's dead on there.
Do you guys see why electoral politics is such a fucking grift?
It's a joke.
It's such a fucking grift, bro. Like, Vivek knows he's not defeating Trump. And
Where's the Whitney Webb tweet? Where's the Whitney Webb tweet? Hold on, I'll pull it up. Whitney Webb. She said this. And
to your point, Misty, he's making a very astute political calculation. Why?
Yeah. Not because he believes it.
So he can be part of the Trump political machine.
Yeah.
He can either get a cabinet pick. Trump just have he had a Truth Social tweet I saw.
Yeah.
Someone screenshot it, because the liberals, they want him back on Twitter before they can post his Truth Social stuff on Twitter.
Yeah. But Whitney Webb said
he praised Vivek. So Vivek is running to be part of the grip, to be part of the Trump industrial complex.
I think he would be a likely VP pick, frankly. I think that would be. But Whitney Webb said, sorry for everybody who voluntarily chose to waste time. They will never get back watching 8 inauthentic turds on a debate stage yesterday. Hope you guys learn your lesson. The political circus is not even straight to DVD quality anymore. And she's absolutely right. And again, I realize you guys watch it. I don't think she's speaking about you guys. I think she's talking about the general public, because those of us in independent media, sometimes we don't have a choice. It's something you have to talk about and cover. But yeah, it's a joke. All of this is a joke. There's no substance to it whatsoever. Again, it's a show. It is it's a soap opera featuring psychopaths. That's all it is.